I'm super excited about today's conversation with a true industry expert when it comes to the tire industry. Faron Schultz, you're now retired, but you were part of the Les Schwab exec team. So, welcome, Faron. Would love to start off with your thoughts on leadership and what that word really means to you in terms of the evolution of leadership in the tire industry and where you feel it has been and where do you think we're headed.
Hey, thank you. Thank you, Mike, for letting me be part of this. I think a lot of folks that may be watching this probably are wondering why they're listening to an unemployed tire busting hippie talk about the tire business. But let me tell you, the logical answer is I haven't died yet, right? So I'm still here. The leadership is something that's very important to me, and because I've been lucky enough to have amazing leaders in my life. My very first job was at a tire store. Sold my first set of tires in 1976 for a company called Alton's Tire in Spokane, Washington, right? Worked for him until Mr. Schwab called and asked me to come down and be part of their purchasing department. And that was in 1987, and we moved down to Prineville, Oregon in 1988. I had two amazing leaders. I mean, not kind of good, amazing. And the thing that made them amazing, both founders, which is fun, is they knew how to ignite passion. And I think that's probably the thing that leadership will always have, is the ability to ignite passion, to ignite aspiration in their team. Because a good leader early in their career understands that you can be so successful with these two hands and your one brain. You are massively successful with the people that you inspire and the hands and the brains that you can have work with you to create success. And I don't think that's going to change. I think what's morphing is we're seeing the great leaders that were entrepreneurs move to second generation and third generation in our industry, in the tire business, right? Which is really all I know, 50 years of selling tires. And it happened with Mr. Schwab, right? It happened with Mr. Alton. We just lost another great leader with Bobby Dunlop here just a couple of days ago. When Bruce Haley passed away, when Peter Veltman passed away, we lost founders. And the second generation has done really amazing work with the company. So we know leadership isn't stuck in the founder. It's stuck in the leaders of the company. And leaders are people, right? Leaders aren't committees. They're not a corporation. It's people, and it's people igniting passion to other people. And I don't see that changing. I see a risk of leadership failing to recognize that inspiring people is a critical part of their business. And I think I watch private equity sneak into our industry right now at a pretty high pace. And if they stay on point, I think everything will be fine. But once cash flow takes over motivation, we're going to see a little struggle, and we see that with some large companies today. So I think that probably outlines it pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that. And can you maybe give some like actual tangibles in terms of like the leadership from Mr. Schwab or other leaders in your experience versus maybe the opposite in terms of bringing that impact?
Yeah, absolutely. If you look at, and we'll talk about Les Schwab. I spent more than half my life working there. You open up a store 1,500 miles away from where the grown-ups are, right? For where the executive team sits in the main office or headquarters, whatever you want to call it. And that leadership, 1,500 miles away, it's a tire store that's opening up in a town, right? And I'll use Denver, right? So we're in Prineville, Oregon. I mean, Podunkville, USA. And we open up tire stores in Denver, Colorado. The day our stores open, there wasn't one person in Denver saying, man, I wish there was another place to buy tires. I mean, everybody already has a tire guy, right? So you move into a market, you've got to be something to make people talk about it. And you do that by having leaders in the store. That's why you promote from within. It's why Discount's so successful. You promote from within. So when Discount just opened a store in New Jersey, probably no one in New Jersey was saying, hey, I wish there was another option to buy tires. Everybody there's already got a tire guy, right? But you watch how successful they'll be there because a leader went into that store. If you send someone to a store in a remote location, and a prime example of this is when we would acquire a company and leave the existing management in place in that store that we would purchase, right? And they would have a chance to prove that they earned the job, but they were kind of granted the job. You could watch that store not grow the way a traditional Les Schwab store would grow. So we would often take one of our people that have been trained and ready to be promoted and let them run for that store, take that store over, and success would happen. It really boils down to people, right? It boils down to the ability to do the job of taking care of the customer and making sure that that young employee or that new employee knows that they're part of something bigger than just themselves. I mean, it's so easy to see, and you can see that both in a large corporations. I mean, you look at use Home Depot, for example, when Bob Nardelli took over after their founder decided to retire. Home Depot was special. Home Depot, it wasn't special after Nardelli took over, who came from GE, if you remember that. So you can see it on large scale, and you can see it just as something as simple as an 8-bay tire store in a remote town. It really boils down to your ability to motivate.
So I start thinking of culture when
Yes.
you're saying, right, with what you're saying, I think a lot about culture. So, and I think a lot of it also applies not just to retail, but like manufacturer, wholesale, distributed teams in general. Can you talk a bit maybe about culture or core values? How do you instill a culture in such a large organization or distributed teams?
Well, again, kind of starts at the top. I mean, culture, it starts at the top, but it's not built at the top, because the top might be 4 or 5 people, right? Maybe 10, you know. The culture is built in the middle, right? It's built in the middle because those are the people that have to make the culture live. And they have to, again, they have to feel like they're part of something bigger than themselves. Because if they don't, then it's a job, right? And if it's a 9 to 5 job, you're not going to put your best work into it. It's just not human nature to give 100% if all you're doing it is for a paycheck. And that's why culture is so critical, to let people know, hey, look, why? I mean, Simon Sinek wrote the book Start With Why, and it's a tremendous book.
Mm.
But why? Why do we do it this way? Why do we want to treat customers like this? Why do we want to balance a till like this? Why do we want to make sure we torque the lug nuts properly? And if everybody understands why, that culture kind of infuses throughout the company. If a store manager or a CEO sees a piece of litter in the parking lot when they're doing a store visit, and they go out and they pick it up, they don't say, hey, you go get that litter. They go do it. They set a tone.
Mm.
That tone at the top then reverberates throughout the entire organization. And if they don't set that tone, that reverberates also. So culture is so critical for a company that's vibrant. And not all companies have a great culture. Every company has a culture. I think I know, like, I shop a lot of tire stores just as a hobby. I probably will shop this year probably 70 or 80 different retail tire locations throughout the United States when we're out traveling. And you can walk into a tire store instantly and know, is there a culture or not? Or is it a good culture or not? I mean, you just pull into a tire store, don't pick the name, doesn't even matter. Pull in and ask for an air check. Just an old fart like me, ask for an air check, and you can see right away, is someone going to come check your air? Are they excited about it? If there's a missing valve cap, do they replace the valve cap? I mean, do they care enough about your safety that they're going to pay attention to what they're doing or not? And it's black and white. If someone has to read what their culture is, they probably don't have one. The culture is more of a feeling, and they have to know why they have it. They have to know why they have that and why they do it.
As I'm listening to you speak, I think of Gen Z quite a bit in terms of attracting and retaining the new fresh cohort coming out of school or just reaching working age. And I think all the data is really pointing at, in terms of attracting and retaining Gen Z, it's really important to have that why, right? And be
Oh,
transparent about it. All the things that you're saying um, are super critical. So what are your thoughts around, the attraction and developing talent today versus maybe 10, 20 years ago?
well, I will say that the difficult part is for now granted, I'm as a baby boomer, and how do you know I'm a boomer? I have a watch on, I have a notepad, and I have two pens in case one stops working. That's how you know you're a boomer, right? Okay. The the biggest part is for us to get over the idea that is kind of running rampant through Gen X and baby boomers, is that they don't want to work. Nobody wants to work anymore. And it doesn't matter who you talk to. I mean, it doesn't matter what business you go talk to someone at Lowe's, you can go talk to someone at Home Depot, you go talk to someone, even at a tire factory, right? Like go to Findlay, Ohio and talk to the folks at the Cooper Tire Factory. All these young kids, they don't want to work. And I don't think that's true. I think there's some that don't want to work. And I think part of it is, and again, this is this boomer mentality, they're kind of lazy because they've been playing video games their whole life, right? And that's overgeneralizing, and I get it. So lighten up on me, Gen Z. But if they know what they're going to do means something, right? I mean, if it means something, I mean, you think about a kid. The average kid today, they don't even get their driver's license till they're like 18 years old, 19 years old. So they don't know about cars. But boy, if they could get excited about a car, if they could be taught, hey, this is how you take a wheel off a car. This is how you take a tire off a wheel. This is how you do a spin balance. Look what happens. You know what a spin balance does? Why do we do a spin balance, right? Why do we rotate tires? And they understand the why, then they can start to aspire to something within the industry. Whether you're building a tire, whether you're building a brake caliper, rebuilding a brake caliper, whether you're working in a factory that's pouring metal into rotors or building wheels, if you understand the why, you're more excited about doing it well. And if you don't understand the why, you're not excited, you just do it. And that's, and I think that's one of the biggest challenges we have is how do you get these people excited about doing something they've never done before? And I think the idea that they've never done it is the reason to get them excited. So, and I'm not saying it's easy because I have a lot of young people that have kids in that age group. And anyone that I can get to go to work at Les Schwab, it works. And the ones that don't want to go to work at Les Schwab, and I say Les Schwab because, that's my history.
That's your blood, yeah.
I know how good the company is. And I know how well they work. And I know the managers are so good and the assistant managers are so good that they want to build that young person. And I've seen it happen hundreds of times with family friends. And they're out there in the ether working at Les Schwab right now. But if they said, oh, hey, go change tires at Walmart, that's a job. And there's never going to be that kind of excitement. And nothing against Walmart, but their tire department is never going to make someone say, I love this industry.
So you just showed that you had two pens on your notepad. So I've always looked at you as a very detail-oriented person. Over your career, again, looking at other companies, doesn't matter the channel of distribution, but what are some more differences where you saw like big results and companies that were really forging forward versus those that really just were never able to scale or make it to that next level?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's probably way more complicated than I think it is, but I don't think it's very complicated. I mean, once you establish this idea that this is how we do it here, this is how we do it here, this is why we do it like this here, right? And so that why is completely understood. Then I'm going to reference it just in the case of a tire store, right? The why is so important. I mean, on any given day, the day I retired, we worked on between 8 and 11,000 cars, right? 8 and 11,000 vehicles that back out of a tire bay, right? And might hit the freeway within 10 minutes going 80 miles an hour. We're the last ones to touch it. Why is that important? We want that customer perfectly safe. What if I do something wrong and that customer's not safe? Building that why into the reason for operational details is critical. This is how we do it here. And when you establish this is how we do it here, you build accountability inside the bay. You build accountability inside the factory. You build accountability inside the boardroom. You build accountability from top to bottom. This is why we do it, and this is how we do it. And once you have the how we do it, this is how we do it here mentality, this is why we have that mentality, then you can optimize. But if you don't have that, how do you make it better? How do you go from, well, this is why we do it. And we do it so perfect. There's no way to make it better. That's silly thinking. But if you don't have the, this is why we do it, this is how we do it, you don't have that accountability process. And then when someone says, hey, what if we try this? You can try it. It can spread like wildfire. And now this is how we do it here, has an evolution. And we're doing it better again. And you can continue to do that. You stay flexible, but you always have this. This is why we do it. Is there a better way to do it? Hey, let's adopt it and let's go. I like when Monroe.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say when Monroe started first buying a lot of companies, and we shopped companies on the East Coast whenever we travel back east to visit with vendors. And I was going to their stores. I admire them. I really enjoyed that company. And when they would buy a 20 or 30 store chain, they seemed to take, hey, what's the best that they do that we aren't doing yet, and spread it throughout their company. They don't quite have that today like they did back then. But I thought that was such a valuable thing to learn, is that, hey, if I learn something new, we can train it to our whole team, and we can train why we're going to change, even if it's just a teeny little change. Even if it's something as simple as telling the customer what you did. Hey, look, you were missing a valve cap. I put it on there. Well, if you do that, you're giving that customer value, but they don't know if you don't tell them you did it. And make sure you had enough air in your spare tire. If you don't tell them you did it, you don't get credit for it, right? And building that value with the customer, building that loyalty with the customer is really, really important. So I think you can find that in almost every successful company. But we found it very powerful at the Les Schwab company.
Way back in the day, one of my first jobs was being an EMT, and we were trained, if you didn't write it, you didn't do it. It was more from like a legal standpoint, right? To kind of CYA. But it sounds like from your standpoint, it's like almost like an SOP, kind of the detail orientation a lot of these companies potentially are missing, or whatever the secret sauce is. And I think then the other takeaway would be the why is really creating the emotion of why everyone on a team should really follow these SOPs, or the why, right?
Correct. And yeah. I mean, again, and there's so many different ways of saying it. That standard operating procedure, But for us, it was just kind of, hey, this is how we do it here, right? Other people can do it however they want. Doesn't matter. This is how we do it here. And you're right, to the point of documenting. And obviously, when you're doing a critical service on a vehicle, repairing a brake system, or that, you want all of that documented, and torquing the wheels, you want all of that documented. But the biggest part is that communication, right? So I mean, here it is in writing. But again, when was the last time you ever looked at an invoice you got? If someone tells you they did it, you build that trust with the customer. You build that accountability with your team, and it just kind of, it can snowball, but you can't let up. I mean, you can't let up. I mean, this is how you do it here. You can't train it once. You can't send someone into a back room, make them watch a training video, and then expect it to be a lifetime thing. I mean, it's got to be built in and day out, top down, bottom up.
Do you think that there's any sort of disruption happening within, I guess, the segment of retail or manufacturing, in terms of some of these larger companies, where they're going to be disrupted by, I guess, new things happening? Or what are your thoughts on disruption overall in today's market?
Yeah, well, I mean, our industry is so mature that we're going to sell 330 million tires this year in the United States, right? Or ship. And we don't have the best data, but it's a reasonably close number. If it's going to be a great year, it might grow 3 or 4%. If it's going to be a bad year, it's going to be down 3 or 4%. We're not going to see giant shifts. So if you want to own share, you got to take it, right? I mean, if the country grows 3%, we sell 3% more tires, and you sell 3% more tires, all you did was stay flat, right? So don't go celebrate. You've got to figure out how to sell more units to more customers to grow your business. I think one of the biggest disruptions will be utilizing AI incorrectly. I mean, I think you think about AI, where we're at right now. And again, this is a boomer talking, but I mean, we're this far into what is going to be infinitely capable. And I believe in first adoption, but we have a fairly large auto dealership out here in the Northwest called Kendall Automotive. And they have a lot of dealers and a lot of different, a lot of different makes that they sell new cars with. I called to make an appointment for an oil change on my new Tundra, right? And they introduced their new chatbot, or she introduced herself as a new chatbot.
Okay.
Okay. And clearly it's not flying. Is it better than a phone tree? I'm not even sure it's better than a phone tree.
Mm.
But I listen to this and I think, if we're going to take the most precious relationship we have, and it doesn't matter if you're a factory, it doesn't matter if you're a distributor, it doesn't matter if your whole deal is just logistics, moving product from point A to point B, and turn that relationship between the two people who are shipping or selling, the people who are buying, right? And turn that over to a chatbot, it had better be damn perfect. I mean, that is the most precious relationship you have. Our entire industry is based on the success of a sale. I like to say in a retail tire business, your report card is simple. It's a retail tire invoice, right? I sold 4 tires. Two people can't sell the same set of 4 tires. So there's my report card. And if you're going to turn that over to AI, it better be really, really good. But what AI can do, I think people need to adopt. And if they don't, they will be left behind. I mean, you think today, what is there, 350 tire sizes? You got a good, better, and best. Think how much inventory that would require. And then if you have a winter tire on top of that, right? Or now you have a low rolling resistance tire on top of that. You can't manage that inventory in a tire store. And a distributor can't manage that inventory for every tire store. So you're going to need to be part of the AI revolution to stay on top of this, to be able to make sure when that customer wants to buy a tire, they can buy the tire from you, right? So the disruption is going to be either people who adopt too soon or adopt in the wrong areas, or think that Excel is going to be the answer forever, and pivot tables, right? So
Yeah. Those days are. I think the talent needs to, like you say, evolve as well, and make sure that whatever the tools are, they understand how to use them. Right. I think that's something that we're seeing on our end is in recruiting and talent. There's tons of AI tools. But over the past 2 years, we've tested quite a few of them, and I feel like they've just created, to your point, more noise than anything. And if we're adopting them but not using them correctly, they actually cause damage.
oh
Relying on them versus the old school pick up the phone and have the relationship, versus relying on an AI tool. So we're seeing it firsthand on our side as well.
yeah, and you make a very valid point. I mean, when you look at talent, I'm making the assumption that you've got the leadership there already, right? That they're motivating people to be the best that they can be, that they're motivating people to be aspirational and want to do the very best job they can. If that's not taking place, then you're already disrupted.
Mm.
You can already plan on selling your company to somebody who might make it better. But yeah, there's no question, and it's going to change. I mean, there's people speculating that that a retail tire store is only going to be delivery point and charge for service, and that tire to customer might go from manufacturer to customer as the sale. I don't see that happening, but it might. I doubt it. I know it's going to be really difficult. And in mobile installation, it's been around for a while. I think it's hard to scale that, but that's my opinion. I don't think either one of those are too disruptive, but I think if you don't have the right people and you're not using the best tools that are available, making sure they work for you, you're going to be disrupted.
What do you think? That was my next question. Like the future of, I guess, just simply like the quantity of manufacturers, wholesale retailers. I don't know, like independents right now, like I don't know how you segment them, but like 1 to 5 locations is one bucket, and then all the way up to, let's just say, 500 plus stores. As these folks are retiring, are they going to be continue to be gobbled up by the larger chains, and there's no real incentive for new stores, independents to open? And then the same question for manufacturers. Do you think like 20, 30 years from now that there's going to be a large consolidation all the way to the point where one day there's really just Amazon and ABC company selling tires? I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Seriously, like in the next 20, 30, 40 years?
Well, I would think that I would think that there's always an impetus for someone who wants to open up their own tire store. And getting into the tire business, you need a floor jack, a torque wrench, and a tire chain machine, a balancer, and you're in the business, right? Because there's so much distribution out there today. You can get product and you're in the tire business. So I think that's always going to be the case. There's always going to be, and Les talks about it in his book, Pride and Performance. He was more scared about a young Les Schwab taking over his business than someone else. Because someone else is already in business, right? And unless he sold to them, they're not going to take him over, right? But but there's always going to be that entrepreneurial spirit, and this is an easy business to get into. Once you get to that 20 to 30 store range, you're a prime target for takeover. I mean, if you don't have a succession plan, you're a prime target. And we're seeing it happen. Gosh, you can't go 30 days without seeing it happen, right? If it's another company that is a tire company buying it and not private equity, I think there's a good chance that entity can grow and stand as long as leadership stays strong. But as if private equity, I mean, it's the difference between ownership and leadership, right? I mean, ownership can change, and ownership can change, and it can be a phenomenal company. Now look at Ray Bestis as a brake brand. Okay, Ray Bestis was owned by Dana. Dana was a huge company, but Ray Bestis was a struggling brand. Dana sells it to Affinia. Affinia turns it into a pretty good company. Then Torque Capital buys it from Affinia, turns it into a great company. And then First Brands buys it, and they turn it into a toilet. So ownership can change as long as the people and leadership stay strong. They motivate aspiration within their folks to build the best product, to install the best product. Those companies will survive, I think, long term. And to your point on Amazon, if Amazon was going to take over the tire business, they'd probably sell some tires. And I still think I haven't seen any kind of data that supports that they're even more than 2% of the market in the United States. And Costco kicks their ass already. Tires are different. And I believe that. Now, someone might prove me wrong someday, but today, you don't just get 4 tires at your house and load them into your car and take them to a tire store and have them mounted and anybody's jacked about it. So.
Yeah, thank you for that. I guess my last question, just to help out maybe some store owners, let's say some of the small independents that have never read Les Schwab's book. I think I read it maybe about 10 years ago, and I probably should read it just to refresh my memory. But I remember a story in there where he talks about a technician basically ending up with some retirement account that was basically in the $1 million range. Again, this was years and years ago, when $1 million was probably worth I don't know, 2 to 5 million, let's say today. But can you maybe speak about, from a retention standpoint? I think that the tech in general, whether that's bay for repair or in the tire industry, the turnover is just really insane. It's over 50%, right, for a lot of these roles. And I'm sure if we look at a company like Les Schwab, the retention is extremely high, or that percentage is much different. We don't know what it is, but I'm sure it's between, let's say, 1 and 50%, right? What are some key differences that you see these smaller chains doing that the more premium brands are doing, but that they're actually capable of doing at that lower level?
Yeah, it's a great question, and and Les's book describes this extremely well. And candidly, if you're young and in the tire business, if you haven't read Pride and Performance, or you haven't read 6 Tires No Plan, shame on you, right? Get your books out and start reading. It's a big part of the why that we talked about earlier. It's the big part of the why. I mean, it's one thing to tell someone to be aspirational, but they have to know why they're aspirational. What is going to be it for them? And Les is unique in this, where complete transparency. Here's your P&L. You get this much of the profit. Okay. And part of that profit goes into your retirement plan. Okay. The rest of it you get. Plain and simple. The more money you make, more goes into your retirement plan, more goes into your pocket, right? So it wasn't based on a sale. It was based on annual sales, right? So how did the store do this year? Okay. And here's your bonus pool. And you get to share in that. So if they know that, hey, I can do this, and then and every employee was encouraged to look at the P&L for the store, and they could see, how much did my manager make? How much did my assistant manager make? And at the end of the year, how much went into my retirement account that the company invested for us, right? We didn't do anything. I mean, it was just there. And literally thousands of employees have retired from Les Schwab with giant retirement accounts, and they're not pensions, right? It's a lump sum that's sitting in an account. And a lot of them, when they retire, take their money out of it and go to JP Morgan Chase or wherever they go to invest it, or they can leave it in there. But that drives retention. And
so do you think a lot of are a lot of independents currently lack? I'm sorry for interrupting, but do they lack that transparency at the tech level?
I can't answer that completely
Okay.
because I've not. I do believe that discount probably is pretty transparent. Maybe not to the part-time folks that they have working in the Bay, but I think they see it. But there's little chance that that anyone at PEP has seen the store performance at Pep Boys or Vegas. I doubt it. But I don't know, Mike.
A small independent, right? Giving that transparency to the top, and again, tying back to the Gen Z. For the why, for the mission, and actually tying it to a unit or dollar amount
exactly
creates that alignment for everyone internally. Of
and but you want to not be, hey, here's a spiff, go sell a set of shocks and you get $5 a shock, right? You don't want it to be that, because that you don't want to be a hard salesperson. What you want to do is create a good, solid, profitable business, and that profitable business can fund the company and it can fund you, the employee. Les gave a ton of money to his employees, and he used the term he used. I don't think it's in his book, but he used it regularly, and he was unselfish for selfish reasons. The more my employees make, the more I make, right? And that was the part of the profit sharing piece that makes the company so spectacular.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having this conversation with me today, Faron. And I took a look at your LinkedIn before we jumped on. Building people, building programs, building profits. Thank you for your service to the tire industry. Obviously, you really know a lot. And if anyone wants to maybe get in touch with you for whatever reason or has any questions for you, what's the best way to reach out?
You just go to LinkedIn. I don't do much social media, so you just go to LinkedIn and yeah, I'd love to reach out and talk to anybody about anything, because I love selling tires, man.
So your hobby is going to tire. I didn't catch that before, but you go to stores for fun and still heavily involved for the tire industry. So
yeah.
They say, like once you're in, you can never get out. So
she goes. She puts up with it. So
awesome. Well, thanks again, Faron. Have a great rest of your day.
Appreciate it, and thank you very much, Mike, for the opportunity.
Awesome. Thank you.